Last time I did this, I was Clerk of Newton Pobbleford during that era when we were sending it to YouTube.
Okay, a retro moment then. So, Chair, we're now streaming on YouTube, so I'll hand over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Debbie. Good morning and welcome to East Devon District Council's Asset Management Forum meeting on Monday, the 2nd of December. It's December already. I am your Chair, Councillor Paul Hayward. I'd also like to welcome anyone watching the meeting via the live streaming on YouTube. May I respectfully remind members that the Code of Conduct applies throughout this meeting. We reserve the right to remove and disconnect any participant who disrupts the meeting by whatever means. Please turn off any telephone devices or to silent. Thank you. We'll now start the meeting by doing a roll call of forum members here present. Over to you, Debbie, please.
Thanks very much, Chair. I'll start with yourself, Councillor Paul Hayward.
I'm here, thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Paul Arnott, good morning.
Present. Good morning, Debbie.
Councillor Hawkins has given his apologies. Councillor Young, good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks very much. And Councillor Olive has also given his apologies. So that's your AMF Chair. I can confirm that you are correct.
Thank you very much indeed. So we move straight on to agenda item 1. Note to the previous meeting held on the 17th of June 2024. If anyone has any comments on these notes, please let me know by raising your electronic hand and I'll look out for those. If I see no hands raised, I'll take this as an indication that the members of the panel agree the notes of that meeting. So nothing from Councillor Arnott, nothing from Councillor Young, nothing from me. So wonderful. Those meetings notes are approved. Items 2, we've had apologies already. Item 3, declarations of interest. If any councillor, either on the panel or outside, has any declarations on matters on this agenda, please make yourself known to me now. Councillor Davey and Councillor Barlow. Hello. Councillor Ollie, over to you.
Morning, thank you. Member of Exmouth Town Council. I think that's relevant to, I think it was item 4 on the major place report.
Lovely, thank you very much indeed. Ian, morning.
Just to say I'm a member of Sidmouth Town Council, and obviously that's mentioned in several places throughout, just in case it is needed to be mentioned.
Thank you, Ian. Mike?
Yeah, just follow Ian's example. Yes, I'm a member of Sidmouth Town Council.
Lovely. Thank you for that declaration. Appreciate that. Agenda item 4, public speaking. I have no members of the public registered to speak, so we'll move on to agenda item 5, matters of urgency. I've been alerted to none. So agenda item 6, confidential exempt items. There are no items on this agenda which are recommended by officers to be dealt with in this way. So we move straight on to agenda item 7, the estates team update from Rob Harrison, who I can't see, so I'm guessing it will be yourself, Tim?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It's going to be me today, I'm afraid. Yeah, Rob is away on leave.
Right. Lovely to hear from you.
Having said that, I think it's a fairly straightforward report. I think this is a bit of a theme for today. So you've got 3 reports, this being the first, all with recommendations merely to note the reports. So focusing now on Rob's estates report, I'll just go through and pick up on some sort of salient points and just perhaps delve into a little bit more detail on just a couple of them. So the first update that Rob was reporting was about the business centre, and there's a lovely picture in the report of our chair, Councillor No Rylance, unveiling the plaque, and obviously yourself, Chair, and other members were at that particular event. So I think probably just worth just revisiting a little bit about the business centre. So for the last year or so, we've had a lot of vacant units. We've now agreed a new lettings policy, and we're pushing hard with a marketing campaign to let those vacant units to get our rental levels back up and voids down. Working closely with economic development colleagues, but also our PR and comms colleagues, to make sure that we get the message out there that these units are available. So good sort of feedback over the last couple of weeks since we've been doing this more proactive marketing. We've had good interest. We've managed to let one of the big empty units as a result. So all looking positive. And the event itself, with the picture of Councillor Rylance, was the 25-year anniversary of the business centre. So we've managed to link that event with a go live of our marketing and getting all of our existing tenants involved in the 25th birthday celebrations. So thank you to Councillor Rylance and also other member colleagues who were there at that event. Scrolling on down, item 3 is probably worth just pausing on. So we have a number of vacant surplus properties that we propose bringing to auction in the new year. There's an auction date in February, which is generally quite a good date to take properties to auction if you're going to. We have 2 public toilet buildings. We have a former Methodist church in Honiton, and also a piece of land at Woodbury Salterton. A number of those, well, in fact, all 4 will require portfolio holder approval. We're going through that process at the moment, with reports having gone to ELT over recent weeks. So, yeah, so all being, and one of the advantages of auction is that it's a fairly speedy process, so a relative amount of work goes in up front, but it does mean then if we manage to hit the February auction date, we should be looking at capital receipts in, all being well, by the end of March, which ties in with the end of the financial year. I'm now going to move on to, it's probably worth mentioning, we don't have Councillor Heath actually in on this meeting today, but I'll just touch on Bere Parish Council and their request for a community asset transfer. So I'm sure you recall that came forward to AMF. I think it was at the last meeting for consideration. It has also been consulted on widely with ward members and with colleague officers across the council in different services. And the outcome of all of that is that there has been an offer now to the parish council to submit a detailed business case to move this forward to the next stage. And just to be clear, that will then come back through to AMF then for a recommendation on whether we proceed or we don't proceed. So just a reminder that the steps involved were firstly an expression of interest. We either support or we decline. If we support, then it goes to a detailed business case, and that's the stage that we're currently at with the proposed Bere transfer. Item 6, I think item 5 regarding the work we did at Seaton Marshes and the acquisition, working with Countryside colleagues, I think that's fairly well known amongst those members in on this meeting, so I think I'll jump over that. The next item I'll pick up on, please, is item 7, and that relates to an asset management plan. And there is an apology from me. We had a number of member workshops earlier this calendar year. We were making good progress in terms of developing a new asset management plan. Other sort of somewhat urgent commitments have meant that work had to just be put on the back burner for a couple of months. I am keen, though, that we have a new asset management plan in place to tie in with our new our new service plans coming in from the 1st of April next year, and obviously the new financial year as well. So we've managed to secure an existing part-time member of staff, agency staff, a colleague called Doug Stanton, who a number of you know and has been dealing with the public toilets project, dealt with Seaton Marshes. He's going to be doing a piece of work just to sort of pull together everything that we pulled together in those earlier workshops into a draft asset management plan and draft action plan for bringing back to the next AMF meeting in the spring. So apologies, there's been a delay there, but we do now have a plan to unblock that delay. Moving on to item 8, which is around the disposal of category B and C public toilets. So there's a brief update there. In terms of transfers to parish and town councils, they are on target to complete, ready for transfer on the 31st of March, 1st of April next year. I think, in fairness, real credit to the parish and towns. It was sort of slow to start with, but absolutely have picked up the mantle. And I think it's shown sort of good partnership working between ourselves and them to ultimately secure the future of those sites. So I'm pleased with how that work's gone. In terms of the other sites that we're working with, the commercial sector, a few more challenges there in terms of timescales, but nevertheless, good progress being made. And then the final point was the asset register. You'll recall, I think it wasn't back at June, I think it was probably March time last year, there was a demo from one of our business analyst colleagues showing the new asset register that is, well, it was new then, it's no longer new, that was published on our website. There was a second piece to that work, which was then to expand that into a more intuitive version that members would be able to access. We suggested at the time it would probably be by way of Power BI reporting, and it would enable members to delve into a bit more detail. So in terms of how long leases are for, but also around the financial performance of those individual assets. We've now got that. I had a demo of it myself last week. I want to take that back through some of my colleagues, and then that will come forward to a future AMF meeting. But in terms of the legwork to get the system working, that is now largely complete. There were just a few teething issues last week, but it is pretty much there. And I think they are the most pertinent points that Rob wanted me to pick up for him. So, but obviously happy to take questions, and I see there's one hand up already.
Thank you very much, Tim. Nick, just before I bring your question in, do you have any declarations of interest to declare?
None that I'm aware of, apart from the fact I'm an Exmouth Town Councillor, but I don't think there's anything else. My apologies for my late arrival, Chair. Okay. Well, thanks very much, Tim, for this update. They're very helpful. Can I ask you about two ones, please? That's agenda item 6, the Norman Lockyer Observatory. I wasn't aware about the meeting on the 26th. Very interested to know how that went. And also on item 8 about public toilets. I've been one particular resident in Exmouth has been bedeviling me about the Foxholes toilets, but her main complaint is that the toilets that are in reserve, which are the ones on the Mare, according to the information sheet on the Foxholes site, aren't open, and I think perhaps we just need to get a little conversation with Street Scene to make sure there's a bit of joined up action, and that's just really a point of information. So any information about Norman Lockyer, please, I'd be most grateful. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Tim, I'll defer to you. I think that if we do discuss it, that may have to be in part 2. Or B.
Yeah, thank you, Charles. Just sort of thinking that myself in terms of what can we say. I think what we can say is that we had a positive meeting with them last week. The ordering of this was that we had a meeting with as officers with Councillor Hayward as portfolio holder, but also with the wider Sidmouth town councillors, so all of the district councillors across the various wards across Sidmouth. We agreed out of that meeting that we would move forward to meet with the directors of Norman Lockyer, but in a smaller group, consisting of Councillor Hayward, Councillor Barlow, who kindly volunteered, and Councillor Hughes. That meeting took place last week. It was a positive meeting. There were some actions that came out of that, and we've agreed that the estates team will make contact with them, I think by the 14th of December, so within the next week or so. That's probably all I should be saying in part A, but Councillor Hookway, obviously happy to pick up any further detail offline if you'd like. In terms of the public toilets, we've been, the sites have been closed whilst we were doing the asbestos surveys. Because they were obtrusive surveys, we had to knock, or contractors had to knock holes in the walls, etc. So therefore, it meant they weren't suitable to then be reopened. We had some delays with Western Power, which are largely resolved now, which had put everything back by about 2 or 3 weeks. But in fairness, there was always going to be a delay between the asbestos surveys and the actual demolition work starting. I believe the Foxholes site, we started on site, it was either last week or this week, so people will see movement now. And then in terms of the mayor, I'm not quite sure what the arrangements are, whether they're supposed to be open or supposed to be closed, but I'll take away an action to pick up with Andrew Hancock, if that's okay.
Thank you very much, Tim. Is that okay, Nick?
Absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much.
I'll catch up with you after the meeting, Nick, because I'm in Exmouth next Tuesday at around lunchtime. If you happen to be free, but I'll catch up with you afterwards. Thank you. Mike, I saw your hand up. Do you want to ask a question?
Yeah, I did, but the question has already been asked about the observatory.
Okay.
I just wanted to update on this. That's fine. Thank you.
No worries. Thank you very much, Mike. Okay, Tim, thank you very much for that report, and obviously thank Rob for putting that together. Sorry he couldn't be here today. Are there any questions from panel members on that report, or just a recommendation that we note it? I can't see any hands up, so I'll propose from the chair that the report recommendation to note. I don't see any dissent, so that's noted. Agenda item 8, place major projects and programmes team update. That title gets longer at each meeting. Naomi, good morning to you. Nice to see you.
And you, Chair. I'm going to ask Alison if she would like to present her reports first, and then I will present the other reports if that's okay. Thank you very much, Alison.
Good morning, Alison. Hello.
Thank you, Naomi. Morning, everybody. Just bear with me a second. So we have the depots review is undertaking. So we've previously advised members about the depots review, and the work is ongoing on that. Having received an initial report, we are looking at an outline business case for reporting to Cabinet with some recommendations in due course. So there isn't anything further particularly to update on that at this time. Looking on to the next item 3, the public toilets and the drill hall in Sidmouth. So that work is now underway, certainly in terms of demolishing the toilet block. So I have just seen a photo of that, and it seems that good progress is being made there. As far as we're aware, at the moment, Rockfish will be proposing to start on the drill hall work early in the new year. There were some ecological issues that they needed to resolve. So, and again, as far as I'm aware, still an opening expected in summer 2025. So the next item, I'm not up to speed particularly on the feasibility studies for Exmouth, so I might leave that one for Naomi to update, and likewise the stalled employment sites. But I'll just pick up on the Seaton Moray-Dunham. So we have, Cabinet now has approved for the selection of a preferred developer and terms of disposal for the site, and our legal team is now preparing the relevant documentation. So I'm in discussion with legal colleagues on that currently. So, and I think that is it for my items, Naomi. So
thank you. Just before you come in, Naomi, so there was a picture put up over the weekend, and I'm sure Ian and Mike saw it, of the Harris fencing around the former shelter block with a sign saying toilet now closed. And of course it is closed because it's a hole in the ground now. But needless to say, cue commentary. From there, in terms of the depots review, without putting you on the spot, Alison, in terms of coming back to cabinet, a time frame. I appreciate it's a work in progress. I mean, are we? Is there any indication of when
there
that
is? Well, I think that's likely to be March or April time currently, with the work that we have to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big bit of work. I mean, with that presentation that came to us, so thank you very much for that. Ian, over to you.
Well, I think you've answered some of my question, because my question was last December, obviously, we had the consultants have been, but this is on the depots review, the consultants have been appointed, data gathering concluded, work was underway, considering options for delivery and further site requirements. So again, I was just asking, when is it actually likely to finally get? Because obviously that's a year ago now. But you've answered that, so I won't ask it anymore.
Thank you, Ian. I can't see any other hands. Thank you, Alison, for that. Naomi, back over to you.
Thank you, Chair. So just the feasibility studies for the 2 projects within Exmouth, so the UK SPF funded feasibility studies, we've now been able to work through the issues we've had with that procurement, and we have a consultancy commencing on that work this week. And that will be fed into the progress on that area of work will be fed into the PETS group, which is meeting next week. Moving on to the stalled employment sites, we now have a multidisciplinary project team which meets on a monthly basis to review delivery of our various stalled employment sites. Our initial focus is on the Hayne Lane site in Honiton, and we're already also starting to look at a project plan on how we bring forward the Cloakham Lawn site in Axminster, and with those sites being focused on due to other requirements, for example, planning obligations and also progress with the local plan. But we look forward to creating project initiation documents for the other sites early in 2025. Moving on to the Cliffs Valley Regional Park, some of you will be aware of this lovely good news story for the development of a new countryside park within the Broadcliffs area, which is part of our habitat mitigation programme. A planning application is currently in and will be considered by our planning committee in December, looking for us to open the site in summer 2025. And this has been a really excellent partnership project between what is now the Major Projects and Programmes team, and also within the PAC service, and also our countryside team. And then the final project is the Cranbox project within Cranbrook. Many of you will be aware that we've been really trying to move forward the delivery of the town centre for many years. This particular project was first identified in 2014 to meet the needs of local residents by our then Community Development Officer. We're now in a happy place where our supermarket is soon to be completed. Some of the town centre shops have already opened, and more coming soon, and we will be able to deliver this project in 2025 with the second side of the high street having some units on it. So a great success, and again a really great piece of partnership work this time of East Devon District Council working very closely with Cranbrook Town Council for delivery of the funding bid in such a short time scale. Very happy to take any questions, Chair.
Thank you very much, Naomi. Jeff, your hand is up.
Thank you for that, Naomi. Good news on the Sangs area, which I've been heavily involved in. It looks a bit soggy at the moment, but that's to be expected. With Exmouth seafront, I'm involved with the beach management plan and also the sea wall. The beach management plan, we've got substantial costs going to be coming up in the next 10 years. It's going to be around about 20 million. And I wonder how we can sort of create a bit more synergy between what we're going to be building on the seafront and how we're going to protect the seafront in the forthcoming years. Now, finding £20 million is going to be substantial. We're only going to be able to raise about £1 million from government funding for sea protection at the moment. So we need to be working together on this, because there's no point in building a whole load of stuff on the seafront when we can't afford to protect it at the moment.
Thank you, Jeff. I'm sure Councillor Hookway is here. That will be a consideration for pets. In fact, I can see Nick has his hand up now. Nick, over to you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you to Naomi for her comments. In terms of placemaking, the current schemes and plans are not particularly large and shouldn't have an impact upon the seawall at all, because there's some way away from it. In terms of the beach management plan, we have had a very effective meeting recently with the consultants, and one of the issues that came up is about the cycleway on next to the pavement there, and possibly the options now that may exist to actually do something about the cycleway, which is very unpopular because we have cyclists and pedestrians on the shared the same shared space, and if in future we can aim to do something with moving the cycleway, make it a much more safer place and a safe more environment, that I think is a very worthwhile long-term cause. Absolutely support Jeff and officers in his work on the Exmouth Beach Management Plan. Very, very important piece of work to do. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Nick. And I can see Ollie has his hand up. I'll come to in a second. I certainly can empathise, having walked along that walkway as a pedestrian on foot. Cyclists do often come up from behind, but then similarly, as someone who cycled there, pedestrians quite often change lanes and sort of move hither and thither in front of people who are cycling, and so I think it's a bit of column A, a bit of column B. So Jeff, I'll come back to you in a second. Ollie, do you want to come in?
Well, you just know if you mention cycling, my hand's going to go up, don't you? Yeah, I mean, I would say I'm quite a fan of shared paths, actually, because I think they force everybody to consider everybody's safety and to be considerate towards other users. And I think they work well when everybody's moving in the same direction. The difficulty there is that you have a lot of cars pulling up and people wishing to cross the paths, and it's the crossing of the paths that causes the problems. So I'm sure if we are redesigning something there, we'll bear that in mind. But I think it's important to consider that it's not actually the people who are generally going in the same direction, although I agree cyclists coming up behind you, and some of them do try and use it as a racetrack. It can be an issue, but the main problem is people trying to cross across the path. So in any kind of redrawing of that, this needs to be factored in.
Thank you, Ollie. Only last night I was watching someone on a pedal cycle doing a wheelie down the Mansfield Link Road in the dark without lights and wearing a black jacket. So hopefully they're okay this morning. Jeff?
Yeah, I'm absolutely fine.
You did well here from Mansfield, Ollie. Well done. Jeff, over to you.
Yeah, just a point that to come back with Nick is, any structures on the seafront are dependent on a structural seawall being there, and without that seawall there, there's no point in building anything. So I don't know if we can get, from when we build these, we can get any funding to go towards the building of the seawall, the beach management plan. Now, we have to work in together on this one to be able to provide both a better Exmouth seafront and also to protect the seafront for the future 100 years.
Thank you, Jeff. Obviously, it's not my place, but if you're happy to keep buying lottery tickets, you can donate your winnings, and it can be the Jeff Young Memorial. No, it can't be memorial because you're still with us. The Jeff Young seawall. There we are. You'll be immortalised forever. Sorry, that's apologies. Ollie, you come back again.
Yeah, me again. Not cycling this time. It was a quick question for Naomi about Cranbox. Is it still proposed to use shipping containers there, Naomi? I'm a bit out of touch with what's happening in Cranbrook since I'm not so involved with strategic planning anymore. So I've kind of lost touch with that committee.
Through you, Chair. We are still looking at the best options for bringing forward that modular space, and so there is pros and cons with shipping containers, but also pros and cons with looking at more demountable modular units as well, which is probably being considered at present.
Thank you, Naomi. And thank you, Ollie. I think everyone in this room certainly would decry the fact that it was, as you say, 2014, and here we are a decade later. But Naomi, perhaps more than anyone, the experience of how Cranbrook has been delivered, and Ollie, in strategic planning terms, Paul, because you're the leader of the administration that's got it over the line, and this is the next phase. So one hopes it won't be another decade, but certainly for the people of Cranbrook, and I'll declare my own interest, my kids are going to be buying from that supermarket, I'm sure. I can't wait till it opens. I really can't. Well, actually, I can, because I'll be dragged around it this Christmas and fleeced of cash. Okay, so thank you. Thank you, Naomi, for that. Thank you, Alison. I can't see any other hands raised, so my apologies. I'm just going to go back to my agenda. So that was agenda item 8. Agenda item 9. Is that, I've got a jump on here between 8 and 10. So agenda item 9, is that property and FM team update? And I can see George is here. George, you're off camera. Oh, over to you.
Hello, good morning, everyone. My camera doesn't appear to be working. Hopefully you can hear me okay.
We can.
Can you hear me okay?
We can. There's a slight delay, but
my connection is
there's a slight delay, but
yeah, my connection is dreadfully slow.
George, as you're struggling, George, sorry, Chair, did you want me just to introduce the report, and then George, I'm not saying I can answer all of George's questions, and if needed, then George can answer the questions. Would that be easier? Because George has quite a delay.
That's probably wise. There's certainly a 2 or 3 second delay. So if you can do that, and then if we need any update from George, we'll all be quiet for 3 seconds, and then he can come in.
Okay. I've done zero prep for this item, so you'll have to bear with me. Let me just go up to the top of the item. So again, this report is merely for the forum to note the content. It follows a similar format. Sorry, George, can you put yourself on mute, please? Because I think I'm now echoing back because you're not on mute. Brilliant. Yeah, George, I'm going to keep going if it's okay, because there's real lapse even when you put the thumb up. You can see it's really, yeah, there's a massive time lapse. If you don't mind, I will keep going. Okay, so same format as other standard reports from George. So George covers the key elements of his team's work. So we start with PPM and compliance, so planned preventative maintenance and compliance. And within section 2 of the report, George sets out the work that we've done between June and October this year, setting out all of the various sites and the completed works. Moving on through the report, George then in section 2.2 lists out the planned preventative maintenance works that we propose to undertake between November this year, so between now effectively and next March. So that's the forward plan. Moving on, there's then section 2.3 that shows where we are with landlord health and safety compliance. Obviously, when I'm looking at the report, that's always the first thing that I will go to on the basis that there is nothing more important in terms of what we do and what that team does than our landlord health and safety compliance. So in terms of compliance, I think the percentages might be slightly out. It's showing us as 88% compliant, 8% warning, so that's 96%. Our target tends to be 92%, so we are well ahead of that. And there's 2%, just 2% that is overdue. That's typically, so often when you look back at the previous AMF reports, there'll often be a small percentage that is overdue, and that's nothing to worry about. And George, in his third bullet point down, talks about the fact that overdue figures include work that may have already been undertaken, but where the paperwork or certification is still to be issued or received, bearing in mind this work will generally be done by external consultants, contractors. So, and the performance indicator is the overdue figure must not exceed 10%. So you'll see here it's 2%. So we are faring really, really positively this quarter. I'm now going to move down to our planned works. So, section 2.4 of the report is the works completed, but also planned or ongoing in the following months. So these are our planned works, okay? So whether they be internal decorations, replacing carpets and blinds, for example, at Honiton Business Centre, or lighting upgrades at Colleton Leisure Centre as examples. So they are planned works. Section 3 of the report then talks about reactive maintenance, and it splits out the percentage that we do within our in-house, so by our 3 in-house maintenance operatives, maintenance technicians, and also that we use contractors for. So again, for me, when I'm looking at this report, again, after compliance, one of the other things I sort of jump to is, okay, let's look at the reactive works and which of our properties are we spending most time at. And again, this is showing what we've seen, I believe, at previous meetings, which is that if you look at paragraph 3.3, there's a pie chart. It's showing that we spend almost 40% of our time on work for on the LED properties, with a good chunk also on public toilets. Now, we will see, and this is in terms of reactive maintenance, not in terms of the toilets investment programme. So you will see, all being well, once we have newly invested toilets in situ, I would expect that percentage to drop off quite considerably. But also a large percentage on our corporate buildings, so they tend to be our office buildings and similar. I'm going to scroll down further now. Yeah, so it's probably worth just stating in terms of reactive works that, so yeah, we've picked up around LED work. So currently 39%, so well, just under 40%. At the last report, it was showing at about 41.5% of our work was LED. So it's slightly lower now, but it's still fairly stable. In terms of our split between contractors and in-house staff, on LED properties, which is obviously where the bulk of that work is, just over 55% was by contractors, so therefore about 45% in terms of our own in-house staff. On 3.4, that sort of shows us quite clearly those sites that, in terms of the bar charts, that we have spent most time, most instructions, most cost, you could equate that to, for each of those individual assets. And you'll see we've broken it down: blues contractor, and then the sort of orangey colour is in-house. And then we move on to sort of finish the report, looking at live capital projects. So there's a report from George there on where we are with the already approved capital budgets, and you'll see there's really good progress being made there. We shouldn't underestimate the scale of that task for what is a very, very small team delivering on those capital projects. If you go back only 2 or 3 years from now, 3 years ago, the breadth of capital projects being delivered by the team was much lower. Now, it's a good thing that we're managing to invest in the capital projects, because fundamentally that will ensure that our stock, our properties are fit for purpose, and you'd expect if they're in good condition for investment, our reactive maintenance would fall. And then there's a final table, so just scrolling down, in section 5, capital bid proposals for 25-26, setting out where we are there. Obviously, as you know, as members, we've gone through BSCAP, recommendations came out of BSCAP, and those projects are going through the current annual budget process. There is a final section to the report, which makes this report slightly different to the early reports that George has done. So in section 6, George picks up very briefly on the swap audit that was undertaken by Southwest Audit Partnership on our corporate health and safety, so our landlord health and safety. And we have an action plan. The actions are advisory only. At the very end of the report, there is the actual audit report from SWAP. We have a very, very high level of reasonable assurance. We didn't quite make it to substantial assurance. It is quite tricky from an audit perspective to get substantial, but we are very, very close to that. And whilst there are 4 actions that come out of the audit, they are all priority 3 actions. So we have no priority 1s and no priorities 2. And I think, as I said at the beginning, earlier on in this report, for me, of all of the work that this Property and FM team do, this is the most important area, because this is the bit where if something goes wrong, it goes badly wrong. And I'm, for one, very reassured by the audit that we've had done. And it always takes a lot of time in terms of sort of our own officer time contributing to the audit on top of everything else. But it's a good opportunity just to get someone else to come in, look at our process, look at our information, and offer an assurance. So from that perspective, really, really valuable. I'm sure George would have presented it better than me had his technology been working, but happy to take questions. If there are any particularly technical questions, whilst you might have to wait for a bit of a delay whilst George can respond, I would probably suggest George does rather than me tempting and failing, if that makes sense.
Thank you very much, Tim. Just before we go to Councillor Barlow, so it's particularly relevant. So some members may have seen an announcement from Seaton Town Council on Friday regarding the gateway, which has had to temporarily close, which is a real shock for Seaton. And that relates to health and safety issues and testing. So what you said, Tim, is entirely appropriate to be said and relevant. We have, members of the public use our facilities. We have to make sure they're safe. That comes at an incredible cost, a whole load of paperwork and routine checks that just don't ever stop. They're just interminable. And when you don't do it right, buildings have to close, and that results in reputational issues, loss of money, all sorts of things. So I'm grateful for the diligence of George and his team for making sure that we are compliant. And as you say, I think 5 category 3 recommendations, and some of them are as simple as we haven't documented or asked for details of training for contractors. Well, I mean, arguably, where does that stop? Is staff come and go? That's why you employ contractors. But it's good that the SWAF have picked up on it, and that's something we will follow up. But it shows the length and breadth of what we as an authority have to contend with. So thank you, Tim. Thank you, George. If we have a question from Councillor Barlow. Councillor Barlow, the floor is yours. Please be aware that obviously George does have this slight time lag.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. I think Tim will probably be able to ask these. I've got 2 questions. First one, staffing in your department, are you fully staffed up? Is everyone happy? And the second one is either Tim or Ding. We have the final part of it, the budgets and whether we completed or not completed. Do we ever get to see? So we got the approved funding. So I'm taking the first one, Seaton Football Club, 291,000 completed, final account paid. Was it on budget? Was it over, under? Did we ever get to see how we did time-wise and money-wise, or not? Or is that in some other bit?
Tim, are you able to respond to that?
I'll respond to the first one, and if we can see if George can respond to the second one, if that's okay. So it's staffing levels. So in terms of George's property and FM team, yes, I'm just trying to think. Yes, we are fully resourced. Of all of my teams, it is the team that we are currently, we probably currently have the biggest challenge in terms of capacity. So that's a combination of the fact that the reactive work never stops. Believe me, it never stops. And all you need is a storm, a cold period, and that level of work goes up even more. But the reactive work never stops. In addition to that, we have a more proactive capital programme, which I know it means spending money, but don't see that's a bad thing, because it is better to spend the money proactively rather than reactively. There'll always be a balance, but generally it is better. So that's good. But the team are juggling reactive plus capital, plus compliance, plus a whole load of other things that sort of end up sort of getting bolted on to their roles. In addition to that, we have the public toilets investment programme, which we're, as you know, now pretty much we are on site in terms of our phase 1 of those category A investment works. But I don't think we should underestimate the scale of that task and the amount of work that George, and it is a few of George's colleagues have been involved a little bit, but mainly George, in terms of getting to this stage. Whilst we have been fortunate to have Kendall Kingscott in terms of our consultant, who is sort of project managing, doing all of that sort of stuff, in terms of day-to-day management and agreeing anything from sort of comms to design to even sort of silly things like toilet roll holders, types of toilet bowl, all of those sorts of things George has to lead on, and we have to get it right. This isn't something where we're going to build it, and if it doesn't work, we can sell it, or if it doesn't work, we can just forget about it. We'll have to live with the consequences in terms of the design for many years to come, so it's important we get it right. So there's a lot of work that George does with Andrew Hancock, Simon Kennedy, Julia and others in Street Scene to make sure that what we're doing absolutely works. And then there's, for example, whilst we're doing the works, the temporary toilet facilities and that. So I think it's probably fair to say, certainly from my own perspective, the the public toilets project has been far more time intensive than I and I think others envisaged. So we are bearing that in mind when we look at profiling the timing for delivery of the subsequent phases, because whilst you would expect the workload to go down because the design work's still being done, there'll still be like planning and all of these sort of things. That it's a very complex project. So we are looking at that. But yeah, we are fully resourced within George's team, but probably of all of my 3/4 teams now, that this is probably the team where at the moment we have the most capacity requirements.
Thank you. George, see you, Ollie. Lovely to see you. George, able to come back on Councillor Barlow's second point about the Seaton Football Club budget on budget?
Yeah, the Seaton Football Club was funded from Section 106 money, and I believe that was agreed at the very start of the project. It goes back to before I actually joined the council. So I don't know too much about it. Also regionally agreed then. The project is finished. I believe that we haven't had to ask for any more Section 106 money. But again, I don't know what that Section 106 money was at the start of the project. Okay, so over the budget, if there was, because there were modular units, and these modular units, you know, they are a price and that's it, they get delivered at that price, and that price is agreed at the time of tender. So it's very little room for things to go wrong on a project like that one. Okay, so if you ask me about all the projects, for example, the roof at Exmouth Tennis Centre, I know that hasn't gone over budget, and even though we had quite challenging situation there with safeguarding and the school, but that project is now being completed. We are in the flex period at the moment, and that is and actually that was delivered before the date that we had sort of agreed with the contractor. So it's some projects go well, some projects don't go so well. If you look at the toilets, for example, okay, so the toilets, we were supposed to be on site a few weeks ago, even before that in the summer, and there have been delays due to a number of things. National Grid work where they needed to move the supply for the building, and that has been delayed. So it's basically delayed everything else. So it depends on the project really, but usually most of our projects, I don't have to go back asking for more capital money. If I have to do that, you would have known, because I would have had to put it through the approval process, because it's a capital project. We don't have any more money than what is already allocated. So you definitely would have known about it if we weren't on them. If we had gone over budget in one of those projects. I appreciate it's not a yes or no sort of answer to the question, but I think we need to look at each project individually. If you want to, we can simply provide it on request. So just let us know what you want, and we would provide it.
Thank you, George. Sorry, you're cutting out quite a lot, so I hope you don't mind me coming back in.
Can you mute yourself, George, please?
Sorry, George, if you can mute, please, because you're causing me to echo now. Joys of technology. Brilliant. Muted. Should be back on. Okay, cool. Brilliant. yeah, basically, if we went over budget, you would know about it because we need to come back to you for approvals. Likewise, I think if we go under budget and we in effect then sort of offer up that money back into the overall capital pot, I believe that gets reported back through BSCAP anyway. So there's sort of absolute transparency there. I wonder if what is perhaps being asked by Councillor Barlow is whether for a future AMF meeting we can just look at completed capital projects and what was the budget and what did we deliver it within. And I think that's probably, from my own sort of management perspective, that'd be useful sort of data to know. So look, are we accurate in terms of our budget forecasting? Because of course, if we do over budget when we come to BSCAP, and it does impact on decisions on that particular budget, on that particular project, but also impacts on other projects as well. So Chair, if it would be helpful, we could bring back a report just looking at completed, and it would have to be completed projects. What was the budget and what did we deliver them again? What was the total cost of delivery? And I think that would be good sort of management information for this group.
Thank you. You read my mind. That was going to be my actual suggestion as a follow-on to Councillor Barlow's question, that rather than trying to do it on the hoof in the middle of a live meeting, that the next AMF meeting, we can compile that information and then that can be circulated out. And then we have that transparency and openness that we're aspiring to. So thank you very much, Tim. Thank you, Ian, for the question. Thank you, George, for the answer. I'll now go to Paul Arnott. You had your hand up first.
Thank you, Chair, very much. Yeah, just a couple of things. First of all, thank you, everybody, for these reports. Always this detail is very welcome, so thank you. Very interesting, of course, worth noting, I think, for the minutes, as Tim has pointed out, that the LED capital cost to us, it's 40% basically of our budget, or thereabouts. And I think that's interesting to note without really further comment at this stage. And I think the other thing is to say, what a good job we're doing around those buildings. And I would like to see, if we can, Tim, please, some more comms on this. Perhaps say, we've got, slightly strengthened comms team. I think we should be telling the story that given that our logo doesn't appear to be on the LED site anymore, I think the District Council, both for the capital we're putting in and for the sheer work we're putting from our officers, that we need to make sure that people understand that that's happening. So I'd like to see that happen, please. The other thing I'd like to say is just really, without tempting fate, just well done to the team on the toilet disposals. It's been such a huge challenge. It is a huge game changer for us as an authority. It had to happen. It's been done as smoothly as possible. There have been multiple negotiations with various parish and town councils and others. And I've had very little, I don't know if this is the right word, blowback on this. And my word, I would have done if people were up in arms about it. But I think, Tim, in the hands of your department, this has been done really well as possible. So just congratulations on that. That's all I want to say, Chair. I would be very grateful for an action around comms about how much work we're doing from this.
Thank you very much indeed. I'm sure the officers here present can liaise with comms, Paul, at your request. Mike, you were next. Hello.
Yeah, well, it's really a question back to you. You mentioned, quite rightly so, the audit report that was done, which was very favourable. Yes, we would like it slightly better. And we did discuss it briefly at the audit meeting on Thursday. But what struck me is the point that you mentioned, that we didn't realise actually our contractors weren't doing X, Y, Z. And it made me think, actually, should we make sure our parish councils, who won't have the quality, won't have this audit report, know that they must do this? Because I'm just doing a report at the moment in improving the risk assessment way we do it for Sidmouth Town. it's quite simple, but you wouldn't look at it unless you knew there's a problem. I just wonder if we could remind them that that is something that could hit them if they don't actually do the proper assessment.
I think that's perfectly valid. I mean, obviously, parish and town councils, and I work for one, we are sovereign.
Yes.
In our own JPAG advice. So your town council, my town council, we go through annual audit, AGAR, and the JPAG advice for lower tier small authorities is very clear as to what we should be doing. So actually, I would say it's the district council has enough. Obviously, as a ward member, you're quite within your rights, and we all should be proactive as ward members to take what we learn here and take it back to our parish and town councils and say, you know, the district council's doing this, you may want to do the same. But your RFO and your clerk should be well aware through JPAG guidance what their expectation is, and your internal auditor should be flagging it up if they're not doing it. So I take your point, Councillor Goodman, you're quite right that every council needs to do the right thing. But I think for this forum, as you know, we had a reflection of what we're doing. I think if we start trying to micromanage and sort of tell town and parishes what to do, I think that's a wrong message. But certainly through the ward member network, we all can.
Yeah, I wasn't suggesting we tell councils parish councils what to do. The only thing I mentioned is because we did make a commitment to help our town and work closely with our town and parish.
Oh, indeed.
And I just thought that was something I'd noticed before, but it's something we just remind our town and parish council they must do this. But I tell what you're saying.
No, thank you very much, Mike. It's a very valid point made. Nick, over to you.
Yeah, thanks. A couple of points. Firstly, may I say I endorse Councillor Arnott's views about having a proper media comms release about our work with LED and maintaining those buildings, because they are very, very public facing. A lot of people use them, particularly in Exmouth, and it would reassure people that we are actually getting on and doing the job and looking after our assets. Secondly, thank you for telling me about the Gateway Theatre in Seaton. I was not aware of that. I've now emailed the cultural producer to ask her to give me a briefing on that. And finally, may I just say to the meeting and members present, anything to do with sports clubs now and Section 106, we now have our senior leisure officer in post, Mike O'Mahony. He's very experienced in dealing with all matters 106 and sports clubs and so on. So please do refer matters to him, and I'm sure it will make our work a little much more speedier and sort out some bottlenecks. So I just really wanted to get the meeting making aware of that. Thank you very much indeed, Chair.
No, thank you, Nick. That's very, very pertinent, and we welcome him on board, and I hope you and he will work well together, and get some.
Already started, Chair. Already started.
I saw the. Ian, over to you.
Yeah, sorry, this probably isn't the right place to bring it up. I don't know what it is. I noticed that Seaton, Honiton, Beer are all up for asset management transfer. Sidmouth has been trying to talk to various people about the marketplace. I just wonder what or where that should go. And
there is a process, Councillor Barlow. So, I mean, if your clerk RFO has a query, or through you, the chair, please just email Tim, and I'm sure that can be taken up through there. But there is a protocol. And I think it's probably not appropriate in this meeting to do it. The ones that are in train are going through because they're following a process. So, but I think Tim would probably welcome an email from your clerk chair if there is any concerns.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Alison, I saw. Oh, thank you. There we are. I saw your hand go up. Hello.
Thank you, Paul. It was just a comment I wanted to make in relation to the comment that Councillor Goodman was making about ensuring or working with parish and town councils. I think it's not always that it's a parish and town council that is responsible for an asset and responsible for all the safety requirements for that asset. Sometimes it is a community organisation. So that there's in that instance there's only so much again that actually a town or parish council can then do to provide the relevant guidance. So I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alison. That's much appreciated. Thank you to George and Tim for that. My apologies. I'm just going back to the medium of technology. So I think that brings that item, agenda item 9, to a close. So with no other hands raised, that I'd like to say that brings our meeting to an end. I'd like to thank everyone, including any members of the public watching online, for taking part. However, can I just remind all those present that the supporting officer will confirm when the meeting is no longer being streamed, and until then your comments will be live to the public. So please be aware.